Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. TikTok for social media giant TikTok's future in the United States. So we are in the midst of knowing that there is a nationwide ban that could be just days away at play. That is unless the U.S. Supreme Court intervenes or an American buyer swoops in at the 11th hour, really, to rescue the app. If that doesn't happen, TikTok will go dark in the palm of your hand Sunday. Some TikTokers hope that President-elect Donald Trump will use presidential powers to rescue the app, but because of that, this very much caught our eye. TikTok's CEO plans to attend Trump's inauguration. In fact, he's not alone. A lot of big tech leaders are lining up to attend the president-elect's swearing in. Tesla's Elon Musk, Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, and OpenAI's Sam Altman, all expected to attend. Senator Mark Warner shared his thoughts about TikTok's looming ban. Here's a listen.
I don't get it. 80% of the Congress, Democrats and Republicans, agreed that TikTok is a huge national security concern. I can't think of a potentially more powerful propaganda tool. Now, TikTok's creativity is great. I think influencers, they ought to be able to continue. All we're looking for is a way to say at the end of the day, TikTok ought to be controlled not by an entity that pays first allegiance to the Communist Party of China. And the irony in all this was Donald Trump was the first guy to point out this problem. Matter of fact, his administration had to convince me. They did a great job of convincing me and the overwhelming members of Congress. So we'll see.
So this influences a lot of people who make money on TikTok. So let's go live to CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Hi, Kelly. Nice to have you here today. So what could Donald Trump do to help prevent TikTok from going dark in the palm of our hands? Because we know in recent weeks he has warmed up to TikTok quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he saw a lot of success during his campaign read on the app, and that does seem to have changed his opinion about whether it should continue to exist. He's even said he has a soft spot for the app. And of course, as you mentioned, the CEO will be at the inauguration. There's a lot of talk about a potential executive order that he could sign. Now, I actually spoke to a number of legal experts today about whether that would have teeth. And there is some concern that that wouldn't actually do a lot. And the reason is that the president's word, some legal experts are saying, wouldn't overcome a bill that has been approved by Congress and that had bipartisan support. I mean, many members in his own party were very much for banning the app for national security reasons. I also thought it was very interesting yesterday in Pam Bondi, who is President-elect Trump's pick for Attorney General. She had her hearing, which is ongoing today. She declined to comment on whether she would commit to enforcing the legislation that is going to ban TikTok on Sunday. So you're kind of seeing some cracks. I mean, we do know that there does seem to be momentum in order to try and make sure that TikTok is not banned. There's a bipartisan effort to delay this, an act that has been put forth by 270 days. But as of now, that executive order talk, it doesn't seem like it would be very clear-cut read.
Okay, so we will stay tuned. We know you'll bring it and break it right here on CBS News 24/7. I want to switch gears a little bit. We know that President Trump's cabinet picks are going through confirmation hearings yet again today. One we want to ask you about, and that is U.S. Secretary Scott Bessent. We want to roll some sound and then talk to you on the other side of this. Let's listen.
Today, I believe that President Trump has a generational opportunity to unleash a new economic golden age that will create more jobs, wealth, and prosperity for all Americans.
New golden age for all Americans. But Kelly, we know the devil really is in the details. What are the details, or do we even know what the specific one-by-one plan is here?
So actually, in his hearing, he did emphasize that ensuring that those tax cuts that were first put in place under the Trump administration, that those are renewed, because they are coming up this year. That's been a very big talk. And I'll actually read you a quote from his hearing. He said, quote, "If we do not renew and extend, then we will be facing an economic calamity." So very different than a golden age. So we do know that that's going to be the first order of business for him and certainly many folks in the Republican Party after Monday. The other thing that we do know is what he has said is the 3-3-3 plan. So in interviews leading up to his announcement as the pick, He said he wants to reduce the federal budget deficit to 3% of gross domestic product, GDP. He also wants to get real GDP growth to 3% and produce an additional 3 million barrels of oil a day by 2028. So certainly, if he's able to achieve those things, there would be economic growth. It could be a golden age read. I think, though, the budget deficit, getting that to 3% of GDP, just for context, right now we're about 6.5%, so that would require a lot of spending cuts. We do have the Department of Governmental Efficiency that's going to be doing a lot of that, but a lot of the folks that I'm talking to, they're very concerned about where those cuts would come and if that would actually stifle economic growth. On the whole, Besson's looked at as measured. He's respected by the investor community, so there is a lot of excitement. But as you say, the devil is in the details.
And we will be watching it. Kelly O'Grady, CBS News Money Watch correspondent. Always great streaming with you every day. Have a great day.